Okay, guys, it is 12 o'clock, and I want to welcome you to Broker um, Talk Time Q&A. And today we're going to review highlights of the 2025 GAR form mid-year changes that Angie has prepared. Angie, as you may or may not know, is on the GAR forms committee. And so we have firsthand information here about the changes. We're not going to go over every single grammatical change, but we are going to hit the meat and potatoes of it. So, Stephen, if you'd go on to our first slide, that would be great. All right, so we have some changes to the brokerage agreements. Under broker authority and responsibility, we have highlighted this for you under number 3E. There's new hold harmless language that's been added to all brokerage engagement agreement I'm not going to go through every word of it, but just note that there are new hold harmless language that the parties agree when they sign our new brokerage agreements. Okay, next slide, please. Changes to seller brokerage agreements, aka listing agreements. We have limit on broker's authority and responsibility, and this is an example under G of the new held harmless, indemnified, and held harmless by the seller during and after the termination of the agreement. And also under B, further explanations on delayed marketing. Seller understands and acknowledges that if the seller is delaying the public marketing of the property, seller may not maximize either the number of offers that they receive or offers to buy the property. Seller nevertheless knowingly waives the potential benefits from immediately public marketing. That is a new change in the brokerage agreement. Okay, next slide, please. All right, there are some changes to the purchase and sale agreement, and under number 3, seller's monetary contributions towards buyer closing costs, and as it highlighted in yellow, that the under number 4, any title objections raised by buyer prior to closing which seller was able to satisfy set forth in the examination section below, or which buyer waives. Okay, that's a change. Under examination, they have to have a written statement of the objections prior to closing. This is of the examination of the title. And they can terminate without penalty, notwithstanding anything in the contrary of property for which purposes herein title, which title insurance license to do business in Georgia will insure at regular rates, subject only to standard exceptions. So that's some new language. You're not going to be seeing a whole lot of that, but they did add some additional verbiage to the title examination. Next slide. Compensation of brokers. Buyer and seller shall be obligated to pay their respective compensation obligations, if any, to brokers in full at closing and as a precondition to closing, as long as the same is permitted by the buyer's mortgage lender. The closing attorney is hereby authorized and directed to show the compensation of their respective brokers on the settlement statement at closing and disperse such compensation to brokers upon the consummation of closing pursuant to the agreements of party paying and receiving such compensation. The acceptance by the brokers of partial compensation at closing shall not relieve the party owing the same from paying the remainder after closing unless the brokers have expressly agreed in writing to accept the amount paid in full satisfaction of brokers' compensation. And that, my friends, is something that we have just been executed twice already, where we've had a buyer, most recently a buyer terminating our agreement on a property that we showed to the buyer. They consequently hired another agent and wrote the contract and are going to closing tomorrow. And I put the attorney on notice that we are due our compensation for this paragraph. And so the goal is not to hold up their closing, but the goal is to at least get some type of settlement for the compensation that we are due from that buyer brokerage agreement. Remember, if a buyer or a seller unilaterally terminates our agreement without the broker agreeing to it, then they are still on the hook for compensation. So they did change also, you'll see below that under delays caused by emergencies, they have changed that now to not more than 8 days. Okay, on to the next slide. There is a new GAR form. Let's see what that looks like. Next slide, please. This is a tenant's broker's notice to landlord of obligations regarding lead-based paint. Tenant's agent just needs to sign this and email it to any landlord or lease listing landlord agent when assisting a tenant with a lease application. And this is the new form. It's tenant's broker's notice to seller of landlord's obligation regarding lead-based paint. New form. So if you're representing a tenant, this is going to be important for you to put in your documents for to get signed. All right, next slide, please. Next, Stephen, is there another slide, please? Okay, that was the last slide that Angie prepared. Guys, also what she did not include in here, and I've already had a couple of phone calls about it, on the F-259, this is a very, very important change. On the F-259, they have changed what is detailed under A and B. Up until these mid-year revisions, A stated that the listing agent is sharing their compensation with the buyer's agent, and B stated that the seller is paying the buyer's agent directly. They have flip-flopped that. Please be aware, if you're filling out the F-259, now A states that the seller is paying the buyer broker directly, and B says that the listing agent is sharing their compensation with the buyer broker. Just be aware, I had an agent call me on Friday and she didn't look at that and put the wrong, check the wrong section, and it was easily fixed with an amendment, but just make sure that you are aware that they have flip-flopped those two, what A and B states. So besides a couple of grammatical error of changes, these are the highlights of the changes for mid-year in 2025 GAR forms. Any questions?
Just a timing question, Tom.
Yeah,
Go into
sure.
effect? Sorry, did you hear that? When did they
Well,
go into
no, I did
effect?
not.
Just when did they go into effect? Is it first or some other date?
What's that now? I'm sorry, I still didn't get it.
When do these go into effect?
Oh, they're already in effect. They went into effect June 1st.
Okay, so if you downloaded the 259, for example, before that, and it's already been filled, you don't have to worry about it. Otherwise, when you download it now, it's going to be a slightly different version of it.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, guys, that's all I have for the GAR form changes today. Any other questions about anything?
I did have a question on 57 pre-showing compensation agreement.
Okay.
I noticed in reviewing that last week, there's something under section, hold on. 2 item B that suggests that if both sides before the offer's made, it's essentially binding, although it can be changed, obviously as part of the negotiation of the offer. I wasn't really aware of that before because I'm filling these out and I'm also getting them from listing agents, but I've never seen both sides sign it for an offer is made. Is that not common, or are people missing that point?
No, I mean, we haven't had any issues with it. I mean, most folks, uh, agents are not filling out the F-258, which I feel is very, very important. And we have a lot of our agents, especially our teams, who, when they submit their file, their listing file, they have that as part of their package that they have. And so they shoot that right out to anyone interested in showing their property. And the only thing that you have to be aware of on the F-258 is that it does have an expiration period. And
Right.
just make sure that it's a valid expiration period. And I always suggest, um, uh, if you have that and it's going to be valid through closing, you really don't have to have the F-259. But what I'm
Correct.
finding is that most agents, most listing agents, are not filling out the F-258 and providing that to the listing agent, to the buyer's agent, and they're just saying, "Please add the F-259 to your offer."
Correct. Which, okay, because I ran week and I just thought when I noticed that that terminology was in here, it's a little bit cleaner to do it up front and have get it out of the way. Then you have one less thing to negotiate in your offer.
I
Um,
agree, because if
yeah,
the seller changes their mind
right. Then
and
then
they
you
want
opening up
to lower the compensation for the buyer's broker,
right.
that automatic and they sign off on that, that automatically amends their listing agreement. So
Correct.
if their listing agreement said they were going to pay 3% and they signed off, for example, on 2, then that uh, by means of them signing that F-259 for a lower amount automatically amends their listing agreement.
Correct. So what happened last week, because I didn't have the 258, the agent texted me 6% shared. So obviously, if that's what you tell me, 6% shared is 3% each side. What he didn't tell me what was that it wasn't equally shared. So I incorrectly included the 259. I filled out section A, which I shouldn't have done because of what he told me. And I inadvertently violated license law by asking for a 0.5% of his commission because of what he told me via text. Had we had the 258 signed, it would have been crystal clear in writing signed by their side, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So when I counteroffered and it was 2.5%, I was kind of alarmed, thinking, well, if we've already agreed to this, why are you negotiating it? So now I understand, even if we've agreed to something beforehand, they can change their mind and negotiate the compensation throughout
Well,
that
it's not
negotiation period.
necessarily the agent changing their mind. It could be
The
the seller
seller,
changing their
correct.
mind,
Yes,
um, and then amending their listing agreement. But I will tell you that that happens less than 1% of the time. I have not seen that at all.
right, right.
Not
The change,
not that we won't see it more in the
right,
future,
right.
but I think we're at a point now in the market where it really is a buyer's market, And I think sellers are going to be more generous with the compensation. Not that they haven't been. I have not seen it be a huge issue, and I review a lot of files. But I think that we're going to start seeing, in some cases, sellers offering more than a 3% compensation to get their house under contract.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions or anything that's not related to GAR form changes? All right. Well, join me at 1 o'clock, and we will be going over Contracts 101 Part 3. Angie is actually trying to take some time off this week, so I volunteered to take her classes today. So join me at 1 o'clock, and we will do the Contracts 101 Part 3, which has to do with exhibits and maybe special stipulations. I haven't quite sure. I haven't taught that class before. So, but anyway, it'll be good. So join me at 1, and we'll see you then. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.